気分は最高だけどびっくり世界がどう
Welcome to the Super Sentai Brothers. This is episode 38 of The Spy Who Loved Megaranger, internet's best and only podcast dedicated to Denji Sentai Megaranger. Every week we watch an episode of the show and we share our thoughts with you, the listener. My name is Matt J. With me as always is my co-host and brother Dave. Dave, how you doing today?
Doing pretty well, man. Doing pretty well. It was a beautiful day out. I was in...
That's not true.
It's very nice day. It's sunny. The snow got all melty. Wasn't too cold. It's really, it's the
sunshine.
sunshine.
Like 34 degrees this morning, it's late April. I am not counting... Like, the sun was out for part of the day, but I'm not counting that as nice.
You know, man, I was in a...
It's a beautiful February day. But
there you go.
But it's late April.
So I am in this continuing education class, and they insist on doing, like, icebreakers, right? Like, how was, you know... And one of them was like, let's do a weather check. How's your weather today? And I was like, my weather check is directly correlated to the actual literal weather check. Like, that's how I am. If it's sunny, I'm good. And if it's cloudy, I'm sad. Like, that's where I'm at right now.
I was going to make a joke about that, but then I remembered that we have so few things to talk about anymore, Dave, that we have literally already made the joke that I was about to make about the weather.
Hey! Well, Matt, I think that's actually a great segue into our first star. Matt, what is our first star of the week?
Dave, you didn't give me a chance to segue into telling you what the episode was called this week.
Oh, sorry. See, I'm a rank amateur at transitioning into the stars. I should have left it in the hands of the professionals.
I mean, you've been here for every one of them.
Yeah, a big difference between observing and doing, Matt.
Well, that's true. That's true. And speaking of observing, Dave, today we're watching episode 38 of Denji Sentai Megaranger. It is called
See, that's
Scary.
how a pro handles it.
Nezirejia's Fiendish Squadron. But of course, before we get into that, Dave, shining in the heavens, there are 5 stars. That is the name of our officially award-winning opening segment. Dave, would you like to know what the first star of the week is?
Man, I sure would.
Dave, it's an isolation update.
Isolation update.
Bringing it back. Dave, Isolation Update was started a little over a year ago. It was a weekly segment that we did for a couple of months before we retired it in, I don't know, maybe we thought that we wouldn't be isolated anymore for that long when we retired it. In any case.
No, I think we retired it because it was becoming like extremely repetitive.
Very tedious. But Dave, okay, so I am now, the Super Sentai Brothers podcast is now a fully vaccinated podcast. You and I and producer Mark actually have all gotten both shots. Like,
yeah.
we are good on that front. I am a couple of days away from because, you know, you're supposed to, like, wait 2 weeks after you get the second shot to, like, let it sort of fully
to
go
everything
through your system.
kind of percolate.
Yeah. So, as we record this, it is a Thursday. On Tuesday, that will be my, like, 2-week time. That is the day that I, like, kick down the front door of my apartment and, like, walk back out into the world, right?
Nice.
Very excited. I'm going to go work in the office that day. And then afterwards, I'm going to go to the bar and drink beer with people in a public space. It's going to be crazy.
Dude, that sounds amazing and excellent. So, like, I'm a little bit weird. So, like, I was actually able to get vaccinated fairly early on because I'm a teacher, right? But in a weird way, like, I got vaccinated so early on that nobody else was... Like, basically nobody else I knew was vaccinated outside of, like, my work colleagues, right? And then also, I'm in the house of, there's, like, you know, I've got 2 little kids, and then Beth has, like, a bunch of, like, autoimmune stuff, and so she has not gotten vaccinated yet. And so, like, I am not yet able to kind of, like, fully
like reap the benefits of...
Yeah, fully reap the benefits. Mostly it just meant that I could go back to work.
Right.
Which actually,
is,
it's like, listen.
Good.
Yeah, no. I was very happy to. I felt very lucky to get it early on, and not to sour grapes. I'm just saying I'm not going to the bar anytime soon.
Well, so here's the thing, Dave. Though, is that like now I feel like I had plateaued in a way a long time ago. Like I was just sort of on this one level for a long time. We're like, well, everything's bad and nothing is changing for a long time, and this is just where I'm at. And even when like the vaccines were getting rolled out, and like I finally got an appointment and had the first shot, I was like, okay, well, like things are moving forward, and that's good, and eventually, things will change for me. But then like a few days ago, on Tuesday, I was like, oh, next week, like. It's next week.
That's it.
Like that's it. Like there was one more week, and then, like I am as immunized as I'm gonna be, and like my life can change for the better. And it is to the point now where like I'm just sitting at my desk in my room, working all day. And just like trying to like focus on any single thing, and my brain just
and
can't,
it's just you can't.
I just can't do it. It's like my teeth are vibrating. I just need like the next few days to pass, and it's not just during the workday. Like as soon as work ends, I'm like, okay, good. I don't have to worry about the fact that I can't focus on work at all this week. And I go into the other room in my apartment, which is the place where I spend the other half of my time, and I sit down on the couch as opposed to sitting down at my desk. And I pick up a video game controller, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to relax now. And then I just, like, turn on the video, I turn on the Switch or the Xbox, and I just stare at the screen. And I'm like, I can't even decide what video game I want to play. And I play something for, like, 5 minutes, and I'm like, okay, I'm done with this. I can't focus on this. What else you got for me, video games? Like, be it work or, like, relaxation. Like, no thing can hold my attention because all of those things are in my apartment, which is where I do not want to be. And now that I can sense, like, now that I can finally, like, see, like, the, like it's right there. It's right there, Dave. But I just want to go to the movies or whatever, and, like, and it's right there. And I have nothing else to say about this. I'm just going to keep saying it's right there until we go to the next star. So we may as well do that now, Dave. What is our second star of the week?
So, Matt, our second star of the week is Bun Vulcan. Welcome to Bun Vulcan. Now, with the caveat that this is actually not a super recent Bun Vulcan, it's something that I did do a little while ago, but realized I never talked about. This was back during spring break. Mom and Dad were up. You were actually over for most of the weekend, for Easter weekend.
Yep. And
Bunny Bear, I forget under what context, but felt that he had been promised donuts. And so
yes.
we're like, yeah. And so we're like, listen, man, we're not going to go get donuts just because, like, we're not. But, like, I understand that you thought donuts were on offer. And that's a reasonable miscommunication. Like, I understand how you get there. And so for the sake of your heart, we're going to figure this out. So I said, you know what, man? I've never made donuts. I'm going to make some donuts. But it was also the middle of Pesach. And so there was no leavening in my house. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this before, but Beth is Jewish, and so we
I feel like it must have come up at some point in the last 6 years.
But anyways, so like I'm kind of Jewish. Haha, that's my dumb joke about it. So anyways, we do stuff. So anyways, we observe Pesach. So there was no yeast in my house, so I can't make yeast of donuts, right? So I'm like, what am I going to do? And then I remember that Alton Brown has a recipe for what he calls a bonut, which is a cross between a biscuit and a donut. And when I say a cross, I mean it's a deep fried biscuit. And so I did have all the ingredients for that. Now it does have a chemical leavener in it. Some people are like, ooh, no chemical leaveners even during Pesach. I'm like, whatever, it's not yeast. Anyways, so I made Bonuts, man, deep fried biscuits with a lemon, a slight lemon, and something else glazed. I can't remember what I flavored the glaze with. What?
Was there any almond in it?
Almond. That may have been it. I often, if something calls for vanilla extract, as often as not, I will substitute almond extract. Not always, but it's a lot. Like, I do that a lot. I really like it.
It does taste good.
They were bonkers good.
Yeah,
they were extremely delicious. I think I think they were a little bit too thick. The inside of the very center was still a little bit doughy by the time the outside was done. So I think I could roll them a little bit thinner than I did, but next time. Anyway, so I made Bonuts, Matt, and they were delicious. Strong recommend. What is our third star of the week?
Dave, our third star of the week is so the other day the trailer for Shang-Chi and the 10 Rings, I think the movie is called.
Yes, Legend of the Ten Rings. Something like that.
Anyway, that came out, and that looks good. But that's not what I want to talk about.
Very briefly, the first 7 minutes of Mortal Kombat was also released, and it also looks extremely good.
Okay. I would like to... I mean, I haven't seen that, but I'm interested. Anyway, so I'm watching the trailer for the Shang-Chi movie, and I am reminded, while watching it, that Shang-Chi's father is being played by Tony Leung.
Yes. The legend.
Who is amazing.
Yeah, Tony Leung rules.
So I'm like primarily familiar with Tony Leung from like action movies. He's in The Killer.
He was in Killer.
No, I'm sorry. He's not in The Killer. He's in Hard-Boiled. He's in Hard-Boiled.
Yeah.
He's in Hero. I'd forgotten that he's in Hero. He plays Broken Sword in Hero.
Oh, that's right.
Dude, have you watched Hero recently? It might have been a star a few years ago because I watched it with Katie when she was living with me like a year or two ago.
I do periodically. I haven't watched the whole thing in a really long time. I do periodically go back and watch the scene between with Donnie Yen, with Jet Li and Johnny Yen with the spear, where they're like fighting in their minds, and
extremely good. Anyway, so I was like, man, Tony Leung, I should like watch more movies that he has been in, because I know that like I said, I primarily know him from like action movies, but he's in a bunch of like romantic, dramatic movies as well. He's been in like, tons and tons of movies, but I've only seen a few.
Right.
So I just go on Amazon Prime Video, which is not my preferred service, but it's the one that is most likely to have like non-mainstream movies.
That's legit. Yeah, that's reasonable to say. It's wild how much that used to change because that Netflix used to be that. Like, Netflix did not have mainstream movies.
Yeah, but now...
It was really great, though, if you wanted to watch, like, 1993, like, Hong Kong action flicks. Like, right. Netflix was the spot.
But now Netflix is just like, well, Netflix shows the stuff that Netflix makes and also the stuff that is very popular. And everything else is, like, moved to another platform. And old spaghetti westerns and kung fu movies are mostly, if you're going to find them, you're going to find them on Amazon Prime. Anyway, so I go in and I'm like, Tony Leung, show me his movies. And there's only a handful of them that are on Prime, but one of them that I found is it's a recut version of a 1994 Wong Kar-wai directed movie called Ashes of Time. Now, Dave, this movie, and Wong Kar-wai is apparently this like legendary director.
All right, sounds great.
Who again is a name I'm familiar with, but I had not seen any of his movies, and so I'm like, oh, I've heard of the name of that director. I know one of the actors in it because it's Tony Leung, and I apologize that I'm probably pronouncing both of their names incorrectly, but I watched this movie, and it was such a weird experience because it's a beautiful movie. It actually kind of reminds me in some way of like Hero, not so much Hero, more like Crouching Tiger in that specifically, not just because they are like, you know, movies of a similar vintage with swords.
Yeah, I really should go back and watch Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon again.
You absolutely should. That's another one I watched recently rewatched in the last few years. No, the thing that specifically reminded me of it is that, you know how Crouching Tiger is like, it's an adaptation of like the third book in a 5-book series or something?
Yes, yeah.
But there were not adaptations of the other books in the series.
Yeah, correct.
And so you're like,
Crying shame, but true.
Like, there's a lot of stuff going on here. And I'm not sure what the context for any of it is, but like, it sort of gets you up to speed, right? Ashes of Time is like that. In that it is a adaptation of like a literary work. Or something like that. But what's weird about it is that it does not seem particularly concerned with getting you, the viewer, up to speed on what is happening.
Okay.
Like the characters, and it's like a series of vignettes, right? That all sort of like center on this one guy, and like a couple of characters that like circle each other, and like the characters are all like, you know, assured in what they are doing. But, like, at no point am I sure what is happening until kind of right at the end, I, like, kind of put a few things together. And I think if I watched it again, I would understand it more. But it's beautifully shot. The fight scenes are directed by Sammo Hung, or choreographed by Sammo Hung, which, like, you know, hey, you know. And so I watched this movie, I'm like, man, that was a very, like I was rapt by this movie, right? Like I found it very compelling, although, you know, hard to sort of parse. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I should look up a review of this movie. Like, it's a famous director. I know that there's got to be reviews of this movie. So I look it up and I find a Roger Ebert review. And I'm like, okay, Roger Ebert, like, this is going to be a real review of this movie. It's not just like, you know, website review from website.com. So I click on it, and I'm like, and he will explain to me what has happened in this movie. I come into this thing, and
this is the guy. This is his whole job. This is his thing.
Yeah, Roger Ebert's like, man, this movie looks great, and I really liked watching it. No idea what happened, though. And then in his review, he was like, so I went to go read somebody else's review. And reading their review was not very helpful. It was like, yeah, there's a guy with a sword in the desert. And that's true.
So I've tried to recreate that experience for you.
Right. And like 2 or 3 paragraphs of his review were like, I had trouble understanding the credits because like sometimes like the actors has like one like, you know, like anglicized name, but not another one, and I'm not sure which is supposed to be the first name and which is supposed to be the last name, and I'm really, really trying here, but like it never seems quite clear to me. And then he just like talks about that for 2 paragraphs before he circles back around to saying like, it's beautiful. Yeah, you should watch it, probably. Anyway, so Ashes of Time, Redux. You should watch it, probably. It's good. What's our 4th star of the week, Dave?
So our 4th star of the week, I actually want to circle back on Stardew Valley just for a minute.
Yeah, sure.
So I felt a little bit, because it's a very old game at this point, it felt a little bit weird to talk about it.
That has never stopped us before.
Yeah, you made the very good point that that's true. Now, we talked about this briefly the other day. Have you played Stardew Valley at all?
No, I have never played it. I have looked over a friend's shoulder as they played it like on their phone, like at the bar at one point. And like, oh yeah, you got a house there and a town hall. Cool. And I know that there are like distinct portions of the game. There's like a romance part and a farming part and a dungeon crawling part, I think.
Okay, yes.
And that's kind of all I know about it.
Here's the thing. That's all true.
Mm-hmm.
But also, it has like a very like Welcome to Night Vale vibe to it.
Oh, interesting.
So like when you start when you start playing the game, right? The premise of the game is that your grandfather has left you this farm.
All right.
Okay. And he says, when you finally can't take it anymore in this rat race, open this envelope. And you are like working at some like wage slave job, and you open the envelope and it's the deed to the farm. So you go out to the farm. And at first you're like, oh, this is just like, kind of a Minecraft Terraria light. Like it's a farming game. You're like hoeing the earth and planting seeds, and like that's all great, right?
Yeah, farm stuff.
Farm stuff. And then you find like on your farm, there's your grandfather's grave is there. And it says like, on the 3rd anniversary of you moving here, stay up because I'll be back. Like, what? Like, his gravestone just contains, like, a prediction that he will rise again. And then there's, like, a dungeon. And, like, you're going through the dungeon, or at first it's just, like, a mine, right? Mm-hmm. And then as you go, like, deeper and deeper, you're very definitely, like, tunneling into the underworld. Like, there are skeletons in the walls. I, like, walked out into a roadway, and there was just like a shadowy figure that appeared for a moment and then immediately flashed away. So like it starts off and you're just like, oh, this is this very cool. And then like very quickly you realize that there's like a lot of weirdness going on like directly underneath the surface of Stardew Valley. So I haven't gotten to delve too much into it, but it continues to be a dope game. It's a lot of fun. So what, Matt, is our 5th star of the week?
Dave, 5th star of the week is it's a continuation of a conversation we had last week. And Dave, it's something that I would like to start calling Segment Quest. Dave, we're trying to get a new segment. The other podcasting brothers, they've never been more vulnerable. Now is our time to strike, but we need a good segment to be able to overtake them.
Now, this was a suggestion that Mark had, because we kind of opened this up to our daily listserv, and Mark, so producer Mark, he said, I want a segment where you read Dear Abby and Landers, etc. questions from the past, and actually answer them today. Now, I love this idea because these questions are amazing. I do, as I'm leading into it, realize that this is a pretty close cop. I like this, and I think we can give it a shot. The problem with it is, as you say, we're kind of stealing their jazz a little bit, just like finding questions. Because I was thinking about Segment Quest today, Dave. Segment Quest. The thing about segments, right, is I feel like you got a couple of options. We could either talk about something that we know about, that we think other people don't know about, and explain it, right? That's one Correct.
segment. We can find a topic about which other people know a lot, and we don't know anything, and we can try to figure it out. Or like, sort of like dip a toe into like a strange world.
Matt,
right?
I have a third suggestion real quickly. We find a topic that we know nothing about, but also then explain it.
Well, okay. See, this is the thing. And this is, I think, because I was listening to the My Brother and Me podcast did a special episode, like, eulogizing Yahoo Answers. So I was thinking about their Yahoo Answers segment. And what occurs to me is that what worked so well about it is that instead of, like, them coming from a place of information and, like, the question asker not having any information, or the other way around, where like the other person has the information and they don't. With the Yahoo Answer segment, neither party had any information. Like the question asker was clearly lacking, and the brothers had no expertise, right? And so it was just pure riffing, which I think is kind of what made it work so well. And yeah, the Ann Landers thing could work. It's a little close, But let's give it a run through. Let's explore this a little bit.
For sure, Matt. Okay.
Because we have a list of these, right? Like Mark pulled the key for us.
Mark found some. Here we go. This question is from the
do we have a name for this segment, Dave?
Oh, I have nothing. Absolutely nothing. Total blank. I got as far as segment quest with you. Okay, Matt, here's the question. This comes from 1955. This is an official Dear Abby. What is the proper attire for women attending a garden club meeting where they exchange plants, bulbs, soil, and fertilizer? Some of the members come dressed in high heels, fancy hats, and rhinestone jewelry like they were going to church. Others come in house dresses, emphasis marks, I think, and flat shoes. I am frankly confused. That's the name. Here's what I love about this person.
Okay.
This person has managed to convey, in the form of a question, disdain for somehow both of these groups.
Yeah, and the thing is, at least from a 2021 perspective, this is not a broad spectrum of dress, right? It's not like there are some people who show up in gardening clothes and some people who show up like dressed for the opera. It's like there are some people who are dressed for the opera and some people who are dressed for...
like the balcony of the opera.
Right, yeah, like a different section of the same opera audience.
Yeah.
And so if she despises both poles of, both sides of this, there's not a lot of wiggle room in between, right?
No, here is my deep hope, is that this is written by just like a woman who is like a hardcore gardener. I imagine she is, I don't know that she's single, I don't know that she's single, but I want her to be single. And she's just like fiercely devoted to, she's like a weird vodka aunt, but of like the night of 1955, right? Uh-huh. Is she potentially a lesbian?
Potentially.
Yes, potentially. She is. And she has no, she is showing up in like slacks and like heavy duty wellies with like a trunk full of gardening stuff. That's where she's at. She has no space for anybody who is who is not absolutely dedicated to this.
Well, because she does, okay, if you were just exchanging potted plants, right? Like you've dug up a little plant from your garden and you're going to come and you're going to trade it to somebody else who has a plant in a pot, right? That's one thing. But she specifically says, we are trading both soil and fertilizer.
Soil! Yes!
Soil and fertilizer. So and this is 1955. So she's like, okay, so we all get together, middle of the day, and we trade piles of dirt and right?
I think so, yes.
So yeah, I mean, the thing that you come with is probably a wheelbarrow, I assume. But yeah, I don't see the practical side of high heels. Now, I don't wear high heels myself, so I don't know what it is like to garden in high heels. Maybe, if you're an expert enough gardener, you just need to keep it challenging. Entry-level gardening clothes are canvas pants and rubber boots, but if you're in the game, if you're deep in the game, you've been doing it for years, and you can somehow manage to bring a yard of soil to a garden swamp and bring back a bunch of stuff to your own home and not manage to screw up your rhinestone jewelry, you got to respect it.
I got to admit, it is deeply impressive.
So did we come up with an answer for this person? Did Abby come up with an answer
for
this
person? I don't know that we did. I tell you what, Matt, I'm going to tell you. I don't think we came up with an answer for this person. I do think we came up with an answer as to whether this was going to work for Segment Quest.
Okay, well, listen. It's called Segment Quest because we're on a quest for a segment. We can't
What a journey, Matt.
We can't just
a
decide.
Journey of discovery.
Yeah, we can't just decide that we have come to the conclusion of our quest after 1 week. I want to cycle through some options here. So let's put this in the positive column, and maybe bring it back into the rotation. But I expect you to come with something new next week. That is your assignment.
No worries. I am on it.
Cool, because as I mentioned earlier, I cannot mentally concentrate on any single thing, at least for the next week. So I'm going to need you to do that for me. Dave, we're going to take a break. We are going to watch episode 38 of Denji Sentai Megaranger. It is called Scary, Nezirejia's Fiendish Squadron. Written by Junki Takagami. Original air date November 16th, 1997. Of course, you can watch along on the DVDs or at shoutfactorytv.com. Guys, I recommend that you do. This week is good. It's got other Rangers, and those Rangers...
Oh, yeah.
Those Rangers are kind of psycho. Anyway, we will be back right after this. Okay, welcome back. Dave, good app.
Very good app. A classic. A classic trope, I think we can say.
Yeah. I think that this is like the most famous example of this classic trope in Sentai, or at least insofar as I will get to it. We'll get to it. I don't want to give it away, although it is not too far into the episode that it happens. But speaking of the episode, it begins. Kenta is getting some snacks because that's what he does. He loves to eat. He's getting takoyaki for the team. I don't know if he's paying for it. He seems to be, which seems unlike him.
It does see, man, okay, listen. This is character evolution, right? This is Kenta growing on. Maybe he got a few bucks. He's like, you know what? I could buy and eat all this takoyaki myself, or I could share it with the team. Takoyaki holds an interesting place in my personal food universe, in that it is at the very top of the pyramid of foods that I think are fascinating to cook and very little interest in eating. Like the method for making takoyaki, I find eternally fascinating. I have zero interest in eating takoyaki.
It's a good thing that Kenta is here because he will eat all of it.
He will.
So he calls everyone to say, like, hey, I got some takoyaki and I'm bringing it to you. And then he gets a message on his digitizer that is Dr. Kubota saying, hey, you idiot. That is a superhero device. It is not your personal cell phone. Don't just call your friends and tell them about your snacks.
Okay, now on one hand, I get what Dr. Kubota is saying. On the other, okay, now wait, let's transport ourselves. I was about to be like Dr. Kubota, it clearly is obviously a cell phone. And then I thought, transport yourself back to the the primitive world of 1997. When you had to pay money for every individual text, right? That was a real thing. So the idea that there is like an extremely limited amount of bandwidth on these things is a lot more reasonable in 1997. Did young people know that? Did you know you used to have to pay money for each individual text?
Yeah, your plan, like your monthly phone plan, included a finite number of texts that you were paying for. And if you went over that number, it cost you a lot more money.
Yeah. It also would have a finite number of minutes. Like, you can use this cell phone for, 400 minutes over the course of the month.
Well, now Dave,
make phone calls.
Are we talking about daytime minutes or nighttime minutes?
Oh, yeah, daytime minutes or nighttime minutes. That's right. Because nighttime minutes were cheaper. Daytime minutes were more expensive.
Sure, because people were using the phones for business, didn't want to tie up the lines, right? I think that was
this all sounds... Dude, I am saying this, I lived this, saying it sounds like the ravings of a madman.
It makes it sound like we are our grandmother, and like, oh yeah, when I was a kid, my phone was a party line, and like, sometimes you'd try to get on the phone, but you couldn't because your next door neighbor was on the phone.
Anyways, so the Rangers have managed to meet up.
I'm sorry.
This is wonderful.
Real brief aside before we move on, rather. There is a tall Steve sighting in this scene.
Yes, thank goodness. I'm just glad that the man is safe.
Anyway, so Kenta is annoyed with Dr. Kubota, but he's handing out the snacks to the rest of the team. They sit down, and this other guy another student named Yasuda sits down on the park bench next to them, and he pulls out
Yasuda,
what appears to be a calculator, a flip-top calculator.
But it's not. It's a PDA.
Now, a PDA is a personal digital assistant. Imagine if you had a smartphone, but it wasn't a phone.
It was
and
just
it wasn't
the other
smart.
stuff. Yeah, like it was just the other stuff. It was just like your calendar and a notepad and a bunch of other things. I got a PDA, I want to say my sophomore year of college. I was convinced. I was like, this is it. This is the thing that's going to help me like stay organized. Because I have
always chasing that dragon.
Always chasing that dragon, man. No, you know what? Google Calendar. It's just everything is in my Google Calendar now. I finally like started to break through. Anyways, I never used it. Dad ended up using it, and he loved it. Anyways, they're like, what is going on? Or Kenta is blown away by this. And the other Rangers are like, it's a PDA. And somebody starts to talk about what a PDA is. And Miku's like, whoa. Hold up. It's Kenta you're talking to. Just try to explain this in terms Kenta can understand. Which, like, Miku, okay, A, Miku, I do understand it, but B, he is like literally right there.
Yeah, although he does appreciate it, because now he understands. He's like, oh, it's like a little computer? Weird, okay. But then, like, he sort of, like, whispers aside to Miku. He's like, I don't want one of those. That's stupid. We have our digitizers. Those are already like cell phones, and I think they're also computers maybe, and they turn us into superheroes, and they get like reception when you're in the subway. It's incredible. What do I want that guy's junky like flip calculator thing for?
And so so we go from there. We're at like a job site or something, I forget what, and there's workers running away. And it's evil Rangers.
Yes.
Now, we don't know they're evil. It's okay. What we see is the Rangers. We see the Megarangers, and they are being evil.
Well, and also,
clearly.
You know how the Megarangers have like those like 5 squares in the line across their chest that are multicolored? These ones, all the squares are black.
I did absolutely alighted right over that detail.
Oh, yeah.
I absolutely did not notice that.
Yeah. So you know they're evil. But it's subtle. I mean, it actually is subtle, but...
It is subtle because I totally missed it. The fact that they are evil is not subtle because
they are acting evil and doing evil things.
Yeah, they're definitely doing evils. So anyways, the other Rangers arrive, the real Rangers arrive, and they're like, hey, you're not allowed to do that.
Right.
And the evil Rangers are like, well, we dressed this way to respect you.
Because you're the fiercest
warriors. Yeah. We will kill you now.
Right. And also, now that we've seen you, we are not impressed.
Yeah. And it turns out to be a very reasonable, very assessment to make, because they mop the floor with the real Rangers.
Yeah.
The real Rangers are 100% out of their depth. They cannot handle these guys at all.
Yeah, so they are all reeling from this attack. And at this point, the evil Megarangers transform into their true evil team selves, and they are the Nezirejia. They are evil electric Sentai Nezirejia. And that's a cool name.
They look super fly. They look amazing.
So these are... if you do not watch Sentai, but you do watch Power Rangers in space, these are the Psycho Rangers. And what I was saying earlier, Dave, is I think that at least in Power Rangers, the Psycho Rangers are like the best remembered version of like the evil mirror team.
Okay, got it. Yeah, they look amazing. They look super. They look actually, I hate to say it, they look dramatically cooler than the real Rangers.
Well, it's like the hero-villain thing, right? Like, the hero looks... A hero is always going to have a more sort of basic costume, and villains get more flowery bits. and like jagged edges and stuff. Unless it's the 90s, in which case it's hard to tell the difference.
Yeah, it's very difficult to tell. So they look very cool. They've also got kind of like a bat theme going on. They look great.
Yeah, they're like bats who are also bugs, who are also superheroes, but villains.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they are about to kill the Megarangers when Mega Silver appears. He manages to like turn the tides enough that they're like, yeah, whatever, we're out of here. But they do say, like, this isn't over. Like, we are going to kill you later, just not right now.
They're just like, not right, but it's coming.
Honestly,
we'll catch up with you later. It's
not even a huge rush.
Yeah. So what we find out is that, they are doing a little thing where they seem to be, during the fight, before Silver shows up, they do seem to be doing some sort of thing where they're, like, absorbing power from the Rangers. We didn't mention that, but it's like, pretty quick, but it seems to be happening. So now they're talking to Kubota, and they're like, what is going on with these guys? Like, who are these dudes, and why are they so much stronger than us? And he says, this is actually very bad. This is actually very bad, Kubota says. He says, he's like, it has not come up with you guys before, because, like, why would it? But the dude who originally designed your mega suit tech is Samejima. And Samejima, we of course know, is Dr. Hinalar. He's been referenced in the past. I don't know that they specifically said that he was the guy who came up with the Megasuit technology.
No, what he said is that Samejima was like Dr. Kubota's main like partner in INET as they were developing this stuff. And that Samejima's speciality, his expertise rather, was in developing power suits like this. So I think that the Megarangers suits, those I think are a design of like a combined design of, Yusuke and Dr. Kubota. But the Neziranger suits, when Dr. Kubota saw those, he's like, oh, rats. Those look a lot like the ones that Samejima, my old pal who disappeared into the Nezirejia dimension, was working on.
Yeah, so I think the idea...
He is better than me at making this sort of thing. So if those are his, then we're in trouble.
We have a problem. Yeah, the vibe that I get is that, like, the Mega Ranger suits that exist now are kind of, like, based on Samejima's notes, but finished by Dr. Kubota. Yeah. And as you say, like, Samejima is the real, like, master of this particular technology. So he's like, this is not great.
Yeah, it's like the Mega Rangers are the Gundams from Gundam Wing, and the Neziranger suits are the Tolkies.
That's a good way to say it. Matt, I'm going to be honest with you. Do I periodically just go back? There is like one image, and it's not from Gundam Wing, it's from the Gundam Wing movie, when they have like the updated ones.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a spot where it's the updated Gundam Heavy Arms.
Heavy Arms Custom.
Heavy Arms Custom, thank you. And it is just like he lands in the midst of like a giant, like a bunch of other mechs, and he like drops his arms down. And if you watch a bunch of anime, you know what I mean. It's that move where like, it's that animation bit where like they move super fast and then stop very suddenly. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's got like 2 dual Vulcan cannons on each arm. And he just absolutely... I'm watching it right now. It is locked into my memory. It's one of my favorite anime sequences of all time. He's just got shoulder rocket launchers.
Yeah, it's great, man. His chest opens up.
Oh, it's so good. Anyways, so we're in the Nezirejia dimension, and the Nezirejia Rangers are there. King Javius is super duper into this. He's like, this is amazing. These guys look dope. I love your plan to kill the Rangers. I love it. I love the whole plan, top to bottom. He thinks.
Yes.
There's a secret that Javius doesn't know about yet. We'll get to that in a minute. So Shibalin and Ugande, however, are bummed. They're like, dude, you also created us. What gives? Are we not good enough for you now? And Hanalard says, no. Shibolena, my dear, you misunderstand.
Yeah, like, I have created the Nezirejangers, and their specific task is to kill the Megarangers. But, like, you and Ugande were spread too thin. You were trying to destroy the world and fight the Megarangers. So I want you to focus on your tasks of, like, mind control and destruction, and then these 5 dudes over here will just laser focus in on murdering those other 5 people.
It's going to be great.
6, I
and
guess.
then Shibolena is like, oh yeah, this is okay. This is a very good plan. So, what we find, so the Nezirejangers go to Earth, and what they have done is they're like, we hacked the digitizers. We figured this out, and now we can scan for the signal, and as soon as we hear we like get the signal for the henshin, we will be able to get there faster, and we will just murder those fools before they can turn into the Megarangers. Which, frankly, is a brilliant plan.
Yeah, and it's not just when they henshin. Like, basically, any time the digitizer is used for anything. So, like, if they make a phone call, like
we will.
And as we know from earlier in the episode, Kenta loves to make phone calls on his digitizer. So that's a problem, potentially.
I mean, it's definitely. If Kenta can cause a potential problem, it will definitely become a problem.
Sure. So the Nezirejangers go back down to Tokyo, and they are just scanning all cell phone activity throughout the city. And just, like, waiting.
Again, 1997, not as insane as it sounds.
Yeah, not quite so much. Back at the Digital Research Lab, Miku asks Kenta what's wrong, and Kenta's like, oh, well, I'm just sad about Dr. Kubota, because he had this friend, and the friend disappeared, and maybe the friend is evil now. We don't actually,
like, unclear. We don't really know.
And, like, it just bums me out. Like, you know, he's a good dude and he's not feeling great, and that makes me sad. And Miku says, well, why don't we all go up to space tomorrow and do something and cheer him up? Kenta says,
I do really like that is an option. Like, let's just go up to space tomorrow.
Yeah.
And cheer him up.
Kenta says, like, yes, great plan. I am going to call the rest of the team and fill them in on what the plan is.
Right. And they're like, no, don't. It turns out, like, Yasuda shows up, and he's just like, hey, guys, what's up? Check out my cool PDA. So they kind of dip because they're trying to make this call. But then when Yasuda uses his PDA, the Nezirejangers show up and beat him up. And we get a montage, basically, of this happening where the Nezirejangers have mistaken the signal from the digitizers for the signal from the PDA. So they're just, like, beating up a bunch of random people and being like, you're Rangers, we know you are. The people will be like, we have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I think this is, okay, here is my theory about this, is that technology moves pretty fast, right? And Dr. Hinelar has been away from our dimension for, what, a year, 2 years maybe? I'm not sure exactly.
I feel like it's a little bit longer than that, but, like, no more than 5, I guess I would say.
So my theory here is that Dr. Hinelar is like, okay, we have scanned and, like, gotten the read on this, like, transmission pattern. So we know, you know, if we recognize this, like, super advanced technology happening, then we will know that it's the digitizers. But he has just lost track of the fact that, like, regular people just have, like, PDAs that seem to have, like, some sort of, like, cellular service and are, like, you know, attaching to the internet wirelessly, you know, just sort of throughout the city. And when he gets a scan on that, like, 3G, he's like, well, that must be a superhero.
That's got it. Nobody else knows how to use
technology.
3G. Or 1G. It would have been like, what, 0G at that point, I think. So, anyways, like, a bunch of people getting beat up, and then the Yusaku figures this out. He figures actually everything out. He's just like, ooh, this is why they're beating up people with PDAs, but also you can't use your digitizers because if you do, they will like know and they'll mess you up. Yeah. Now, immediately after that, the Nezirangers also figure out that like, oh, we've been like getting this like this boofed signal that we don't actually care about.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, they don't seem to care. They're like, well, this is going to take longer because we've got to beat up all these other people until we find the Megarangers, but they don't seem like they're going to stop. Like, they have not changed their plans. They have just changed their expectations for the timeline.
Right. Well, there's no motivation for them, right?
Yeah.
There's no motivation for them to stop. Like, they were just willing to cast a very broad net of people that they can beat up as long as they do at some point get the Rangers. No problem.
Yeah. So, back in the Digital Research Lab, they're talking about how Yasuda was attacked the day before. Kenta's like, man,
why didn't we know about it?
Yeah, Kenta's like, this is really bad. We need to call Dr. Kubota and tell him. And he's about to call him when Dr. Kubota walks in the room.
Yeah, he's like, don't do that. And they're like, what's going on? And he's like, let me explain. And then he explains everything. And he's like, listen, don't fight. Do not fight.
In fact, you are locked out of digitizers. Like,
oh, that's right. He's like, I locked you guys out. They're not going to work. This is an awesome, like, Kubota as dad moment. And we get a few of these throughout the show, and they always feel really great. And Kubota's just like, listen, I feel bad enough that I made you part of this. Like, I kind of did because I didn't have a choice. But having done that, I'm not going to let you be... I'm going to be as responsible as I possibly can. There's no way you can win this right now. Just sit this one out.
Right. Like
he's like, I'm going to go to...
Like, we've got other things that we can try. Like, you are benched. I know you're mad that your friend was attacked, but, like, you can't just gamble with your lives like this.
So he's like, I'm going to go to Samajima's place. I'm going to look for clues. You guys stay here. Of course, he does. Of course, they don't stay there. They follow him. He goes into Samajima's place. He's kind of looking around.
And apparently he just has a key to Samajima's place because the gate is locked. There's like a chain around it. And when we see... And then like a second later, he's just inside. And later we see that the gate is open.
Oh, that's right. I was going to assume that he just like jumps the gate or something.
No, I think he just has a key to Samajima's place. His mansion.
That would make sense.
His
like
abandoned mansion on the outskirts of town.
Right. You've got a key to my place.
That's true.
So anyways, the Rangers try to follow him in, but there's a force field. I have no idea who set the force field up. I don't know if it's like Nezirejia. I don't know if Kubota did it, but there's a force field.
It's got to be the Nezirejia because we also now see a statue that was in the front yard of this mansion, like, shift around and get all twisty because there is a influx of power from the Nezirejia dimension.
Oh, okay. Then that makes a lot of sense then.
And as this happens, Dr. Hinelar appears to Dr. Kubota as like a hologram man. And
he's like,
it's weird because,
Kubota.
like, you know, this is the first time that Dr. Kubota has seen Dr. Hinelar. And we are used to the fact that Dr. Hinelar looks weird because he's got like big purple hair. But this reminded me that, like, the last time Dr. Kubota saw Samajima, he was a guy. And this has got to be kind of a shock for him, right?
Yeah, no, he... And he says as much. He's like, what is... Samajima? Is that... No. But is it? There's definitely... He kind of gets all of that into his face. So we're kind of bouncing back and forth between two different things here. Kenta's trying to get in. He contacts Yusaku. He's like, Hinelar is talking to Kubota, and Hinelar is basically just like, I'm not sure what you're trying to accomplish. I am going to murder you. I'm going to murder everybody on Earth. I'm going to take over the planet.
And he says he's going to take over the Nezirejia.
That's right. This is the first time that Hinelar has, on screen at least, explicitly dropped his overall plan, which is also presumably like destroy Javius and take over the Nezirejia as well.
Yeah, we got hints of that back when Gairail was around and butting heads with Dr. Hinelar, but like at this point, it is pretty clear. I mean, it is not pretty clear. It is clear because he says it that his plan is to like take down Earth and Nezirejia and rule both. So they, in calling Yusku, they have alerted the Nezirejangers, right? Because just the act of using the digitizer as a phone will alert them. But what they have done is they said, like, listen, we wouldn't call you if it wasn't an emergency, but it is an emergency, so we're going to need you to unlock the transformation sequence on our digitizers. And also, as a side thing, could you please deploy the Digitank? And this is very cool.
So we get so the Digitank rolls down and we get a very cool like ninja run animation as the Nezirejangers are chasing after it. They finally catch up with it and they open it up and it's a distraction. There's like a signal booster or something in there. So while they were chasing that, then the real Rangers were able to henshin.
Yeah, and this gave Yusku and Tall Steve time to hack the digitizers to unlock the parental codes, the parental control codes that Dr. Kubota had put on them.
Yeah.
At some point in this, Yusku refers to Tall Steve as Pops, and I don't know if he's saying that because Tall Steve is older than him, and it's a joke about that, or if Tall Steve's name is Pops. But that's weird because his name is Tall Steve, and Pops would be a weird nickname.
Yeah, that would be very odd. So, they enter the fight. Now it's Nezirejangers versus Megarangers, and the Megarangers are like, "You can't beat us!" And it's just like, man, guys, it definitely seems super duper seems like they can. The Nezirejangers do like a super join hands and like gather our power like a blast of electricity attack. And it's incredibly effective. It destroys the Rangers. But here's the twist. While we are watching that happen, we are flashing back to the Nezirejia dimension where King Javius is like writhing. Well, his one big eye that we can see on the screen is like writhing in agony. He's like, "Oh no, what's happening?
My power, it's being drained." Yeah,
so the Nezirejangers somehow are drawing their energy and power directly from Javius.
Yeah, and this seems to be what Hinelar's plan is like he has made this unstoppable fighting force who is like not only doing his bidding and defeating his enemies, but also weakening his boss. And then I assume his pivot is then going to be sending the Nezirejangers to fight Javius and like...
Yeah, I mean, that's always gotta be,
Pretty cool move, Dr. Hinelar, actually. I mean, you're evil, but pretty nice move.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's, dude's not a genius for nothing. Like, this is a pretty brilliant plan.
Yeah. He does tell Dr. Kubota that his revenge is just beginning now.
Love it.
Now, the Nezirejangers are totally winning this fight, but when Javius starts to freak out, I think it disrupts them in some way, and they fade out and disappear and head back to base. Kenta and Dr. Kubota are both apologizing to each other. Kenta's like, "Oh, I'm sorry we weren't able to protect everything," and Dr. Kubota's like, "I'm sorry I got you drawn into all of this." And at this point, Kenta's like, "Listen, I understand your concern, but this is our battle. We can't not be. There's no one else to be doing this. We have to be doing this. And I understand your concern. We do live here. But you have to let us fight."
Yeah. And then that's it.
Yeah, that's the end of the episode.
Oh man, we're rolling in towards the end. It's episode 38. It's a great cliffhanger episode. I was very excited.
Yeah, so that's it for the episode. We, of course, normally we would rank a monster in the Creature Royale, but there's not a new monster to rank this week, or at least not a new monster that has been defeated. I'm sure eventually we will rank the Nezirejangers, and they will probably rank pretty high because they're cool. But we've got to let them. We got to let them sort of run their series of episodes, which will be a few episodes, I think, because I saw the preview for next week's episode, and it is not like the big showdown with those guys. It is just an episode in which I think one of those guys appears.
Oh, okay, nice, man. Like
so
to see
now,
that.
I think they're just sort of like in the show for a while.
They're in the mix,
which is cool. Anyway. That's going to do it for another episode of The Spy Who Loved Megaranger. Before we finish up here, I'd like to remind you all that you can email the show at supersentaibrothers@gmail.com if you want to get any updates on future episodes, or check out the things that we're talking about on Twitter. We are on there at Super Sentai Bros. If you like the show, please remember that shining in the iTunes review section, there are 5 stars. If you'd like to rate and review us on iTunes or the podcatcher of your choice, that would be very kind of you. The Super Sentai Brothers are a production of Retrograde Orbit Radio. If you'd like to listen to any of the other great Retrograde Orbit Radio shows, you can find them all at retrogradeorbitradio.com. Once again, we are the Super Sentai Brothers. I'm Matt.
I'm Dave.
And we'll see you next week for the greatest show on Earth.